wanting and getting excited about having sex. And it's not that we don't love our significant other. It's not that we don't want to be there for them. It's just like, we're so tired.
Biggest kickbacks I always get from my clients is like, oh my God, you want me to schedule sex? Like, and it's like, that's so not sexy. And it's like, let's just change the mindset around that, because it isn't the same as it was. And how cool is it that you're intentionally now putting this on your calendar? Let's just talk about something you really want to do, or that's really important to you, for like, cannot miss this kid's school event, cannot miss this client meeting, right? Are you just gonna be like, hope it happens? Like, no, you're gonna make sure it's on the calendar. So why do we think that we can put everything we need to put, and we make an attempt to put it on the calendar, but then sex is just supposed to organically happen? That's crazy. Yeah.
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I am your host, Mary Katherine, and today I am excited about this guest. I'm actually a little bit nervous. I'm not even going to lie. We're going to keep this conversation PG, but this is an episode that you definitely want to tune into, especially if like you're a mom, you're going through a postpartum journey, or maybe, you're just trying to rediscover yourself and ignite some fire in the bedroom with your significant other. So today we have Katie May, and Katie is a mindset coach and relationship mentor who helps high-achieving women create and experience deep intimacy and connection that they truly crave in their relationship by embracing their vulnerability. Katie has a background in human and family development with ASU and almost became a therapist when she discovered her true passion was walking alongside women and helping them through the relationship struggles in real time. She has helped many women identify their blind spots and contribution to the unhealthy cycles in their relationship. And as a result, these women walk away feeling more empowered with boundaries and healthy communication. As a result, these women establish a deeper, more genuine connection to themselves, which transforms their surrounding relationships. So today we're going to dive into everything relationship focused, boundaries, communication, and even the fun we women are or aren't having in the bedroom. And also why high-performing women struggle to communicate their needs effectively and how it impacts their relationship, and how to use vulnerability as your true superpower. So welcome, Katie, to the podcast.
Thank you. That was such a good introduction. and all we have to cover, I hope this is like a 3-hour podcast.
Yes,
I'll do my best.
Yes. And as I was mentioning before we started the show, like as bad as I want to like dive into all of the things that I've experienced with in my relationship with my husband, and after having kids, like we're going to kind of, just hit the surface on some of these things today, but give our audience something to think about. And hopefully they'll have some tactical things that they can take away and use when it comes to communication with their significant other. Yeah.
Yes.
So before we dive into that, I kind of want to start with, you almost became a therapist because you loved helping women in this journey so much. But how did you actually get into the mindset coaching and becoming a relationship mentor? What really inspired you to do that?
Favorite question. It's a long story. But the short version of that is I just always had a passion for helping people. I always had I'm talking like I was a kid, and my childhood friends would come to me for their relationship advice. Like I just loved helping. We'll call it a God-given gift. Like I just have insight into looking past the biases into people's lives and just seeing, hey, this is what it is. And I can be very objective, and I'm really good at empowering other women. And that was just like, what do you do with all that? I got to be a therapist. And I was headed that direction. I even started briefly a master's portfolio entrance class into a master's program. And I sat through it and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. I don't know why. It doesn't. And, then lo and behold, several jobs later, I worked as a social services, in the social services industry as a foster care case manager at a behavioral health center for children. Wow. That was quite an experience, and then led me to high performance coaching consultation job at an agency. And I got trained in coaching. And I was like, oh man, like this is what I'm supposed to do. Now, you guys need to understand too, because I married my high school sweetheart. So we were together since we were like 17 years old. And we had a very challenging relationship. And through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of different marriage therapists, we're talking probably 4 to 5, I discovered at some point in my journey that this ship was going to sail or sink no matter what I was going to do. But I was so focused on his part, and I felt so justified in, because I was going to church and I was doing all the right things. But he, right? While anybody justified me, lots of people did, I still lacked my own personal growth. And there came a point in time where I was like, I haven't sat in a therapy chair, right? Digging into my own stuff. I never put me under the microscope. Am I truly living like the best version of myself life right now? Irregardless of him, right? And when I truly just like woke up to that, and it took our marriage falling apart for me to actually get that, like I woke up and was like, dude, I gotta get myself help, right? No matter what happens, the only responsibility I have is to me and showing up as the best version of myself, no matter what. And I can't honestly say I am, right? And so that's the long version of a short version tried there. But I eventually, through another reunification and attempt with my now ex-husband, I learned so much about myself, so much about proper boundaries and standards for how you're treated, and everything involved in that I got a chance to start my coaching business and walk alongside women and help them transform their relationships. And it's just been the coolest journey like ever. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Now, when you discovered that you needed to be the one sitting in the therapist chair, like when you needed to be the one that actually, dig deeper with yourself, were you helping other people at that point? Like, were you so busy helping other people that there was this thought in the back of your head, like, okay, I'm taking care of all these other people, but now I need to take care of myself? Because I feel like that's actually how many women feel, especially when they have kids. It's like you're taking care of everyone else, and like, in the back of your head, like you're not okay, but you have to put on this facade, and you don't have time, and you're not feeling worthy of taking care of yourself or doing anything, a little bit deeper. And were you feeling like that? Because I know a lot of women feel like that.
I mean, all my life, right? Like I was just the constant caretaker of everyone else around me, like just a born mom. And like you heard earlier in my story, I always liked helping people. I always liked taking care of people. And this is why I help and work with specifically high achieving women, because I find that like we have that tendency specifically, like we're going to just put everyone else before our own needs. And then we find ourselves resentful that our needs aren't being met. Right. And while I had like my background is in human and family development, I like almost minored in communications. Like I knew how to talk, and most women I work with know how to talk, know how to communicate. They just have no idea how to actually communicate effectively their own needs, wants, and desires, because they don't stop long enough to actually ask themselves what they are. And they're just hoping someone else is going to be like them and look into them and see them and come and tell them and anticipate and meet their needs, just like they work so hard trying to do for everyone else around them. When I came to that realization for myself, it was exactly that. I thought I was so self-aware. Like, hello, I like read the books. I like all the things, right? Like, and I was not self-aware at all. I was aware of everyone else around me.
Right.
And that's where all my energy went.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like a a two-part equation. Like the first step is becoming aware, and the second step is actually taking action
Yes.
on that awareness that you're feeling. And I do feel like many women, they get to that point where they're like, okay, something's not right. I need to make a change, but life's too busy. So I'm just going to sit
Yeah.
in this for a while. And
Yeah.
then, it could go many different ways. I know for like me personally, a few years ago, I kind of had like a breakdown, which was a breakthrough. It
True.
was during a
Yeah.
burnout time of my life with my two kids and my multiple fitness studios. And my husband and I had to make some serious changes, which we'll, go into here in a little bit. But I did have that like breakthrough moment where I was aware and I realized I needed to take action. But I will say, like, I know from, the clients that we see at the gym, many of them, they're aware, but they're not taking action.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I laugh now because it's like, I mean, my marriage was literally falling apart. It was to the point where it was like, it's separation time, if
yeah.
not divorce. I was literally on the floor of my closet in a fetal position, having my first panic attack. And, my husband at the time just like left me there. And I was like, I thought I'd like get comfort here. I thought I'd
Yeah.
get like help, right? And this isn't to make anyone feel sorry for me or empathize with me, but I want you guys to understand like this is how bad I had to get before I actually took action, because so many people along my journey up until that point had given me advice, told me maybe you should see somebody, maybe you should get some help, maybe you need more support, Katie. Like I had a really great friend of mine who was a therapist herself, and she's like, "Girl, you need therapy," and I'm like, "It's fine, it's fine." Like we've been to marriage therapy, we are getting therapy, right? And
Yeah.
I was on the floor and experiencing that horrible, like just I call it a come to Jesus moment. It was just like, what am I going to do? And that was when I picked up the phone and I literally called her, and she had to talk me out of my panic attack. And I was like, I will do anything. At the time, we
Mm,
were broke. We were living on a teacher's salary, one income. I was a stay at home mom. I was like, that was where we were in that place. And I was like, we didn't have time. I didn't have the money, all the excuses not to get help. And I was like, a credit card, swipe it. I don't care. I
yeah.
will do literally anything to get myself out of this, whatever this is. And it's unfortunate that we have to be put through such a place of discomfort before we actually take action, because I talk to women all the time. A lot of women come to me and they have one foot out the door, one foot in. And truthfully, their heart is so hardened and so shut
Mm,
off because they've spent so many years feeling this way in their relationships. And then they come to me and I'm like, I wish I would have seen you like 3 years earlier.
yeah.
Because it's not hopeless, but damn, like we've got so much work to do because you've already shut off so much of your heart for self-protection because you've endured this for so long. I tell women all the time, I'm like, I wish women would separate earlier. I'm not going to lie. Like we're talking about if this is like where your relationship's at and it's really
Yeah.
bad, like separation can be such a healing thing. And if nothing else, taking action earlier on, the second you notice, hey, this is off. Hey, I need more support. Hey, we need more support. Like I so wish we would, but I can't say I did that, right? Like it took
Yeah.
me literally falling apart before I took action too, you know?
Wow. Well, I want to segue into, we're talking a lot about communication,
Yeah.
communicating what we need to those that are around us, to our significant other, to whoever it may be. I want to talk a little bit about, you're an advocate for women when it comes to, accepting your body image and loving your body image and building your self-esteem. And I want to talk about how that affects our level of intimacy and our relationship with our significant other, and especially those women that are going through like a weight loss phase or after childbirth. Because I know for like me personally, and anyone listening that has had children, I mean, your body goes through so many changes.
Oh
And
yeah.
after, those 6 to 8 weeks, you're told, go back to normal, go do what you used to do. You should, just start living your life. But you're living in a different body. Like your body
Yeah.
never is going to be the same. And so how do you coach women through, I guess, two things is one, communicating with their significant other what they need in the bedroom, what they need to feel connected. And two, how do you help women just build their self esteem, love this transition phase of their life, or love this new body that they're in? And like, we talk about this a lot at the gym. Like, it's okay to love your body, but also want more. Like,
Yeah.
especially with anything in life, like
Yeah.
you can appreciate what you have, but still be striving for more. So, for example, when you have
Totally.
a baby, you gain like 30, 40 pounds. Some women do. And then it takes a long time to get that off. You're not going to just look in the mirror and say, whew, I love this body. Like I'm feeling sexy. Let's put on the lingerie. Like that's not going to
Yeah.
happen. But
Yeah.
you have to have that some level of appreciation for what your body has gone through in order to show up, in order to love yourself in that moment. So can you
Oh,
just
there's
kind of
so
touch
much
on
in that. So much I want to
Yeah.
dive into with that. But you hit the nail on the head. It's so much of gratitude for your body. And first of all, I want to go back to communication, because at the heart of communication is the biggest thing that I teach women is being like so self-aware.
Mm,
Because like I said, we're not estranged from like knowing how to talk. The issue is we do not take the time to sit down and actually ask ourselves, what am I thinking right now? Why am I thinking this? What am I believing about myself right now? Right? And if we stop long enough to do, this is where the mindset coaching comes in so importantly, because if we stop, and this is anything, health, sex, relationships, it's all applicable, right? If we stop long enough to ask ourselves, hey, why am I struggling to have a desire to have sex again with my husband? Like, why am I struggling with that? Right? It's like, well, I feel ugly. Like I
mm,
had this athlete body, I mean, and I'm speaking, I'll just speak from my own personal journey. I was like a soccer player. I had a six pack. I did not have a weight problem ever in my life. Like I was very fortunate. I had a high metabolism. I was very active. And so I like left activity. Like I didn't go to the gym. I didn't do sports. And so after I had my son, I felt that about myself. Truthfully, I was just like, so like my body is so ugly. It's so
yeah.
wrecked. It's just, and I said all of these things about myself, and it's like, no one feels sexy that way. No one wants to go strip off their clothes and go attack their husbands. Like nobody feels that way when you're sitting there telling yourself how ugly you are, or how like, oh my gosh, my body's so deformed. And this was just the stuff that was going on inside of my head. And I know, because I talk to women, this is the stuff that is going on inside of their heads. And so what it took me doing was like, everyone, the conversation I have, whether it's getting back to your body or getting back to the relationship you want, my first thing is we're not getting back to
Mhm.
anything. We're not
I
getting
love
back
that.
to anything. Okay. So just wipe that off right now. Let's just get that out of your head right now. We're creating something you've never had before.
Mm,
And it can even be better. Like it literally can be even better. Right. And so but the starting point is, let's get honest about where we truly are right now. Am I happy in my body? Right. Do I love how I look right now? Maybe not. Right. But does that mean that I'm ugly? Does that mean that I can't love my body and appreciate it for what it is and where I'm at now? Because then that turns into, okay, instead of going and beating myself up for the weight that I used to be able to lift, right, at the gym, I'm now going, hey, I'm here lifting weights. Look at me, right? Good for
yeah.
me. And it turns into positive psychology. And this translates into your relationships with, hey, back in our honeymoon stage, we were all over each other. We just wanted each other all of the time. And gosh, it's just like a chore. It's like something we need to put on a calendar now. Oh my gosh, our relationship's doomed. It's forever like this. Or oh my gosh, I love my husband so much and I care so much about this relationship. I recognize that after kids and with a busy life, I now have to be so intentional about, sex and being intimate with him. I put it on a calendar. Look at
Mm,
us trying. Look at us keeping this going even under these circumstances and paying attention to the progress you're making instead of constantly trying to get back to something that is gone. And
yeah.
now let's look at what's possible because there's so much more possible. So that I'll leave that with that. But I feel like those are the important parts we've really got to play into to make real changes and actually keep us motivated to keep changing, right? And working towards our goals is you have to start by like just having that sense of gratitude for what your body has done for you and where it's gotten you to and how it is now, and start focusing on every little bit of progress you make from that point on.
Mm. I love that you mentioned like, when you start having kids, and I mean, it doesn't matter if you have kids or not, like your relationship, it thickens, it grows, and over the years it changes. There's no
Yes.
going back. But that like spontaneity and that spontaneous like sex that you're not having anymore, a lot of us can think, and I know I did this personally. I thought to myself, like, oh gosh, our sex life isn't as good as it used to be. Like, I hope everything is okay. We don't spontaneously just have sex like we used to. And we did start scheduling it, which
Yes.
almost sounds ridiculous, but
No.
it works because my husband and I are both entrepreneurs. We have
Yes.
2 kids. Our schedules are all over the place. And it doesn't matter if I have the lightest day ever, I still figure out a way to be busy all day. Like it's
Yes,
my
because there's
schedule.
always something to
Yeah,
do.
there's always something to do.
Yes.
And so I would say this probably started about a year and a half ago. My husband would randomly send me Google Calendar invites, and he would say like
Yes, I love
sexy
it.
time. And and at first I was like, ugh, but then it's like it is something that you can look forward to. You really
Yes.
can. But it helped me because I'm not really a spontaneous person anymore. I mean, I would like to say I could get back to that, but right now in the stage of life that I'm in, I'm not. And can you speak to that a
Yeah.
little bit? Because I think there are a lot of women, I only have 2 kids. I have friends that have 4 kids and they're little and they're trying to hold it all together. They're stay-at-home moms. They're catering to everybody else. And I imagine that they're struggling with this, like actually wanting and getting excited about
Yeah.
having sex. And it's not that we don't love our significant other. It's not
No.
that we don't want to be there for them. It's just like we're so tired. Like
Yeah. You're so
how do you
tired.
navigate that?
I'm
Yeah.
so tired. First of all, I know this is one of the like biggest kickbacks I always get from my clients is like, "Oh my god, you want me to schedule sex?" Like and it's like that's so not sexy. And it's like
Right.
I know I totally get like why people's initial response is like, "Ew." But let's just change the mindset around that because everything you just said was perfect, right? It was like you just had to be honest about what life is like now. It isn't the same as it was. And how cool is it that you're intentionally now putting this on your calendar? This is what I tell all my clients because I'm like, most of them are running businesses, most of them have kids too. It's like, let's just talk about something you really want to do or that's really important to you for like, you cannot miss this kid's school event. You cannot
Right.
miss this client meeting, right? Are you just going to be like, hope it happens? Like, no, you're going to
Mm-mm.
make sure it's on the calendar. So, why do we think that we can put everything we need to put, even things that we truly desire, we really want, and we make an attempt to put it on the calendar? But then sex is just supposed to organically happen. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Like it really is if you think about it and you break it down that way, right? It's like, guys, we don't live in a romance novel. Like we
No.
just don't. We need to get realistic about the fact that life is different. And it's the cool thing is it actually can be so much more fun. Like I'll just speak for me personally. My own sex journey with my husband was like, it was very at the beginning. Like it really wasn't. And we actually had so much better sex after I went and got so much more aware of myself and my own needs and my own desires and what made me feel sexy. Right. And I was like, you know what? Today I've decided I'm going to have sex. Like instead of being like, oh God, he's going to want it again today. I've got to figure this out. Like I'm so tired. I like, if one more person touches me, like, how can I get out of this? Can I just smell really bad this day? Or like, it's like, like instead of that, I was like, what do I want my sex life to look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like for me? And what if because I was at the place where I was like, I wanted to want sex and I didn't. And so it was like, okay,
Mhm.
so how is that different? Well, that looked like starting it in the morning. Like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to decide to have sex. So maybe I'm going to make sure my legs are shaved that day. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to wake up first thing in the morning and we're going to have sex instead of waiting till the evening because I'm already
Mm.
tapped by the evening. Maybe
Yes.
it's I get on the phone with my mom and I'm like, hey, mom, come over real quick. We're going to go for a quick bite to eat. And then, we have sex in the back of the car, like on the way home, because that's still kind of fun. Like,
Yeah.
there are ways, but it does take being intentional, and it does take trial and error and just making it kind of a fun, like, laugh about it kind of lightness instead of this heavy, like, oh my God, our marriage is like ending, our relationship isn't what it used to be. It'll never get back. Like, it's like, no, what could we make it? Like, how
Mhm.
can we just laugh about the stage that we're in, that like little kids could walk in on us in any minute? Like,
Right.
how can we change our mindset around this to be like, yeah, it is what it is. And one day they're going to be grown up. They're going to be older. It's going to be a season where we have more time. We have more energy for those with littles at home. Right. But even still, it's any relationship takes intentional effort. And so I'm a
Yes.
big fan of scheduling it and communicating about it for sure.
I love that you mentioned intention and then also that we're not living in a romance novel because I can't tell you how long I felt so bad that I did not wanna have sex at night, because ever since I
Hmm.
became a mom, it's like, between 8 and 9:30, 10 p.m. is like
You're
my
just
sacred time
toast.
where I can relax,
Yeah.
and by the time I've done my skincare routine and put on my pajamas and done all the things, the last thing I wanna do is have
No.
sex, like, I'm sorry, and I actually felt bad for a really long time, like, why don't I wanna have sex at night? And it's just because I'm so tapped, like,
Yep.
I am just done, and so, like, I'm not kidding. I'm sorry if my parents are listening to this, but, like, a lot of times, my husband and I, like, we schedule it during the day when the kids
Yeah.
are at school and, like, because we both work from home primarily.
Nooner.
But I love the scheduling it. I love that idea for our listeners, and whether you consider yourself a sexual person or not, it's a part of all of our lives, and it is something that we as women, I feel like it's a little taboo and we don't talk about it a lot, but we should be talking about it more and we should be communicating more. And I want to segue into that piece. So say that you were listening to this and you did just have a baby, or you're in a weight loss phase of life, you're in a journey and you're just not there yet. You're not feeling comfortable in your skin. Maybe you do want to have sex with the lights off. Maybe you want to be under the sheets and there's some boundaries that you want to set. And we were talking offline a lot of times, like, some of these boundaries for us women are like unspoken, like we have them in our head but we
Yeah.
haven't actually communicated them.
Yeah.
How would you advise someone communicating those boundaries and setting those with their significant other?
Boundaries are so, I'm so passionate about boundaries. Because yeah, there's so many things to say here. When it comes down to setting boundaries in the bedroom, first of all, we want to talk about this. There was a Stanford research done by, if you guys get a chance to look up Shanti Feldhahn, she's a fantastic marriage researcher. Her and her husband actually does, and she wrote the book for women only. He wrote for men only. Great reads. They did a study, and like I think they came up with like maybe like I want to say like 80 to 90, just something ridiculously high percentage of men who like said they would rather go like do lawn work than have sex with a wife they know that doesn't desire it or them. So it's like, I don't want to speak on this because
Sad.
it is sad,
It's
because
sad.
it truthfully, like we really don't have enough compassion for men. I severely lacked it, ladies. Let me just come to you. I never come from a place of superiority. I'm just telling you, this was my journey too. I had very little compassion for my husband. he's just a dude, they're just dudes. And we do so much and it's all on us. And what about us? And, it's everything's about them. And so we really don't stop and consider them enough in this. And I know I'm all about self-awareness and here I am talking about the guy, but I do want you guys to understand, like, they actually want you to want them. Like it's extremely important for them to feel desired sexually from their wife. And I'm saying this too because I myself and so many women I work with also feel like, it's just like, I just feel like an object. I just feel like it's just one thing he needs and he doesn't need anything else from me. And it's like, no, it's just a different level and way of connection. They desire connection with you. They desire that through that physical intimacy, where we desire connection through usually communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that you're less important. It is just a different way of communicating. It's a different way of connection for them. And you're just as important to them. So having said that, I will say, you getting so aware of what makes you comfortable, about what makes you feel sexy. He wants to know. Mm-hmm. He wants to know how to help you want this with him. So if you can say, you know what, and guys are visual. So guys want the lights on. They don't care about your cellulite. They don't care about your rolls. They don't see any of that. They see their beautiful wife that is naked and they love it and they cherish that. And so that I want you guys to also take into account and really hopefully maybe see yourself through their lens. Mm-hmm. But also if it truly is just something like, man, for now, I just feel like I got to be at the lights out. Are you okay with that? I want you guys to have that conversation with them off the cuff, not in the bedroom, not just before, but beforehand. Hey, babe, I truly do desire you. This season of maybe we haven't been intimate as often as we want to, I've discovered has a lot more to do with how I feel about me than it is about you. And what would really help me is if, when we are, intimate, I know you love the lights on, but it really makes me feel even more sexy and desirable and want you when these lights are off. Like you can be so compassionate and so like considerate when you set these boundaries. It doesn't have to be a wall. It doesn't have to be a block. It can be a pathway to actually like deeper intimacy and understanding and open up even deeper dialogue, right? Like he might even say, wow, that's too bad because I love seeing you naked. Like, I think you're so beautiful. I think you're so sexy. And hopefully you can get there too, mentally, to even just allow that. But if you're not, you can be like, you know what? I know. And I so love you for that, but right now I just want to desire to have sex. And frankly, I'm just not in the mindset to where I can do that without the lights on,
Yeah.
And I love you and I want this connection. So can we compromise here? This is what makes me feel comfortable. That's a great way to start off, just setting a boundary. And that's with anything, right? But it all starts off with you asking your question, what do I need? So that you actually can go and effectively communicate it with him.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that you're asking yourself, what do I need? But the second part of that is, what do I need in order to communicate to him? Because I think sometimes like women, we're asking ourselves, what do we need? And we're telling ourselves internally and we're having that dialogue. But we're not explaining why it is we need that to our significant other. And I think it's just a great point that you made. Like, you are in this season right now where you want to desire him, you want to desire her, you want to have that intimate relationship, but you're struggling. And like just communicating that with them, I think could really make a huge difference, because a lot of times we're suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And I think just opening up and explaining why it is we need this and what our goal is, what our end goal is, that could really help.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It was kind of funny because I had it wasn't necessarily body image per se. I did have a lot of that as far as like, I didn't feel as sexy as I was. By the way, I found out lingerie really made me feel sexy, certain lingerie, because I didn't
Yeah.
feel great about my body. So I was like, this lingerie actually makes me feel really hot. My boobs are down to my belly button right now. Like, hey, right? Like, so you got to figure out what's going to do, what's going to work for you and make you feel like sexy and light you up. Right. But this is just an example of like what communication does outside of the bedroom to impact the bedroom, because I used to struggle because I wanted conflict resolved instantaneously, right? I'm like, look, we got an issue, we got to hash this out. And it was selfish because it was like really for my own peace of mind. Like, I don't want to spend the rest of my day hashing this out in my head. I didn't have the good emotional like tools or journaling or self-awareness at that point. So what I would do is if I had something that was unresolved, I didn't feel like I could be intimate with my husband until all of our problems were like wrapped up. I would literally block my own like intimacy with him by starting a fight. And I wasn't trying to start a fight. What I was trying to do was resolve an issue I felt unresolved so that I could have sex with him. And he was like, I don't understand this. I feel like we just had a great date and now you're like trying to fight. Like, are you trying to just avoid sex? Like, are you trying to start something? And like on a conscious level, no. But yeah, I was actually doing that. And when I came to realize what I was actually doing, there was two things that happened. One, I realized I could put a pin in something and still have sex with my husband and still come back and get resolution. Two, I was able to verbalize with him, hey, I'm actually trying to resolve this in my head because I want to have sex with you. And this is really going to block me being able until this is resolved between us. And I feel like safe and comfortable, because it's a big deal for women too. If I'm going to feel safe and comfortable and be able to just be in my feminine and embrace this experience with you, which is what we both want, I'm going to need to just have this resolved real quick. Can you talk through this with me so that I can feel good about it and we can go, have great makeup sex, and that was such a game changer. It was huge. He had a deeper understanding of where I was coming from. I understood where I was coming from so I could communicate it. He felt desired, not rejected. Like, such great sex came from that,
I want to translate that to outside of the bedroom too, because I can relate to this a little bit. Like, many women and like high achieving or high performing women, we have these mental to-do lists in our head.
The mental
we
load.
We want to check everything off before we can sit on the couch and enjoy ourselves. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to like the bedroom. I'm laughing right now to myself because I can't tell you how many times like my husband and I will be like kissing and I'll be like, did you empty the dishwasher? Like just all of these crazy things that we're thinking as women, as moms, and you can't turn it off no matter how hard you try. But I love that you mentioned that, like, you want to resolve everything before you can like relax and you can enjoy intimacy with your significant other, which I think too. Also, I want to talk about resentment a little bit because you mentioned that in the beginning of our conversation today. And I want to touch on that because I want you to offer up some tips for our listeners, but also I want to talk about my personal journey with that. So after I had my son, our second child, I felt the mental load, 2 times what it was. It just increased. And I always felt like it was up to me as the woman to go to the grocery store, do all the laundry, do all these things. Meanwhile, I'm also running 2 gyms. I'm doing all of these other things too. And it took some serious communication with my husband to explain to him what I needed him to do in order to take some of that mental load off my plate. But prior to that, I had this resentment towards him because I felt like it was my duty to do these things, but I didn't have time. So I resented him for it.
Yes.
Even though it was honestly my fault because I didn't communicate what I needed to him. And so I'm sure you've worked with many clients that have
Oh
had
yeah.
this issue. Can you talk about resentment a little bit and
Yeah.
how that can affect us in our relationship?
Bread and butter, girl. Like, yes, let's go. Yeah, resentment's big in my world. I was friends with it. It was like my bestie for a while. But what you said, I love that you said it. Like, I felt that these were my responsibilities and I didn't have the time to do it. Oh, that is like such a breakthrough for so many of my clients, because it's like, uh, okay, I'm gonna digress here. Brene Brown talks about resentment, and it's actually like she was talking. I don't know the third party she went to for advice, so I'm sorry about that. But she talks about how it's actually it's in the family of envy.
Yeah.
And it's not like you think it'd be like anger or contempt, right? And it was like, no, it's actually in the family of envy. And it was literally like such a light bulb moment for me. Like every time I felt like resentment sinking into me, if I asked myself, what am I jealous of? What am I envying him or his life, right? For his life. And then I
Yeah.
turn it around. Like I'll share a personal story in this too, because it was like COVID time or something. And we were like, I was still working from home. My husband at the time's like job was totally shut down. Um, he had spent like 4 hours on video games or something. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Gonna kill you.
Are you kidding me? And it's like, and then I had to stop and think, I'm like, no one's keeping me from spending 4 hours on a video game. Like, no one is keeping me from sitting in a bubble bath and enjoying my time.
Yeah.
Like, but me, right? And so it's like, so if I really want that, if I really want what I was envious of is time for myself, time to do something I enjoyed, why don't I just go freaking do it? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's again going back to the self-awareness, but there's so much shame that women carry around, feeling like if I don't do it all, I'm not a good mom, I'm not a good wife, I'm not a good business owner. This trickles into everything we touch, right?
Mhm.
And ladies, like if you're listening to this, you own a business, this ties into how you scale, right? Like I've heard women who can't hire because they feel like they should be good at all of it. And it's like, no. But we have this shame that like if we're not doing it all, then somehow we're falling short. And then we
Yes.
start resenting the other people for not just seeing how crazy we are for piling it all onto our plate. And he should just come along and peel that stuff right off our plate because he sees how full our plate is, right? He sees this. I've told him several times. I tell him almost every day the laundry list of ish I have to do in comparison to his one thing he does, right?
Mm,
And why can't you just come over and take this from me? Because in truth, you're holding on to it. Because he
yeah.
actually can't come and hold on to it or come take it, because even if he did, he wouldn't do it your way. You would resent him for it because you truthfully are mad at yourself for not being able to do it all, which is a crazy expectation of you to even put on yourself. Right?
You were literally like like you're like writing, you're speaking to exactly what I went through for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I would critique my husband on these
Mm-hmm.
things when he would try to help me. You
Yep.
know, like if he was trying to pack lunches for the kids or something.
Yep.
I'm like, "Oh, well you're really going to pack that you're gonna... And I just had to let go.
Yes.
And then when I let go, I had that little bit of peace. I'm like, "Oh, this feels nice. I'm going to do it more."
I always like talking about the superiority of women, the audacity that we have, because truthfully, half the stuff that leaves our mouth, if a man said that about a woman and what she did, holy crap, he would just be crucified, right? It was like,
Yeah.
I did the same thing. Like, and women are like, well, he's not doing it right. It's like, who cares?
Who cares?
Like,
Yeah.
who cares? Like, it doesn't have to be done right, right? Like, I mean, sure, like obviously I speak on the 3 C's. So the 3 C's are like the biggest mistakes you're making in communication without even realizing it, right? It's always it's criticism, it's competition or comparison, and complaint. And so many women think they're communicating effectively. And when I hear the phrase, he knows, I've told him, I go, break down a conflict for me. And sure enough, they have communicated their needs or their wants or their desires in one of those three ways. And so while he may know, you have just slapped the crap out of any chance of him feeling motivated to come and actually help you, because you're not communicating in an effective, mature way. You're communicating like a kid. You're complaining. I'm so tired. I'm so overwhelmed. I just wish I could take a nap. Well, he knows you're tired. He knows you're overwhelmed. And he's thinking, man, you probably shouldn't have put so much on your plate. You should go take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. Like, go do it, because he's gonna, if he's tired and he's overwhelmed, he's like, I'm just gonna go take a nap. And we go, well, I wish I could. You can stop making yourself the victim, you know, like, but this is all stuff I had to learn too. It's not an easy road.
This is so great. I feel like now we're like tapping into another episode, because I could share, I'm sure we both could, so many stories where we've felt like this and we've dealt with it in the wrong way and we've course corrected. Like, I'm even thinking about how at night, so like my husband and I take turns doing bath time, and like my kids take a bath in our room right now because we have a big tub, and my husband will turn on like ESPN and be watching it while he's like giving them a bath, and he's like multitasking. He's kind of like semi relaxing. Whereas when I'm giving them a bath, I feel like I have, the towel over my shoulder and I'm like rubbing everybody down. It's like so stressful. And like sometimes I'll come up and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm, watching football. And I'm like, you're supposed to be giving them a bath. You're not supposed to be doing both. You're not supposed to be enjoying this. And somehow men are just able to do that.
We need to take a page from their book is what we need to do.
we really do. And I appreciate that you mentioned that we don't give men enough credit sometimes. And like, we don't pay enough attention to the way that we're making them feel in some of the ways we're communicating. Like, I just wrote down those 3 C's, and I'm thinking to myself, sometimes when I'm communicating what I need, it does come off as a complaint. And we've had conversations about this, my husband and I. Sometimes I feel like I just need to tell someone the way I'm feeling. Like, I just need to complain to someone. And 9 times out of 10, it's him, because he's with me all the time. And I do feel for him, because there are times where I'm like, gosh, I shouldn't have just complained for the last 5 minutes. I really should have communicated what I needed in another way. Like, can we have a redo? And so I really love that you mentioned that, because I think all women, we could all work on that.
1,000%. That's one of my like most common workshops I run. And then I have my own flip to that. I created this, it's called the OBS method, which would take way too much time to go through. But I'm going to run a workshop again on that. And it basically is like the antithesis of the 3 C's, teaching women a proper like system of how to like bring your needs to your spouse or anyone, your team, your business partner. But I was going to say, since this is like, weight loss journey related and, or, health related, a lot of times I have the women ask me like, how do I get him to come along on this journey with me? Right. And this is so important, because going back to what we just communicated about, it's like, you're never going to influence him by any of those means. Like, you're never going to get him by nagging him. You think you're being sly, you're being passive aggressive. He feels that. Like, you're never going to be able to control his own path to his own health and his own journey, but you can ask for his support. And you can have him, the biggest influence you have in this whole journey, and you want him to join you on, is watch you be joyous in your journey. You figure out how to enjoy this journey on your own. You go out and you show him what he's missing, because you're glowing and you're working out and you're loving this journey. And it would be so great for you to come along with me, but I get it if you don't want to, right? The biggest influence we have over anyone in our life is through action and through compassion, right? And it's so hard. I get it. It's so hard to be on this journey and just watch them not go along with it. You want them to experience the joy. You want them to be on the same page. You want them to stop tempting you with the junk food that's in the house that you're trying really hard not to eat. But you're never, if you are complaining, if you're criticizing, if you're bringing any of that kind of energy or resentful energy in the home, you're never going to convince them. Or if anything, you might even like be stalling their, or
Right.
even pushing out their own journey. Like, not to say you're responsible for them, but we have a lot of power.
Yeah. That's so great that you mentioned that, because that was my last question and I almost forgot. Self-care and taking care of ourselves. It's so important, whether it's taking the 30 minutes just to relax on your own or taking 30 minutes to go to the gym. How have you felt like, self-care and intimacy, how do they go hand in hand when it comes to, showing up as your best self as a woman? Have you found that like women that do spend the time taking care of their self
Oh
more
yeah.
are able to show up more in an intimate way with in their relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, you talked about the mental load, right? I mean, and this is the thing, when you talk about shutting your brain off, you actually can, like, you can learn to get to a place to where you can, to a degree, right? To a
Yeah.
degree. And it starts by giving yourself that space. For me, self-care is my morning routine. I'm with God, I'm walking, I'm working out, I'm doing everything for myself. I'm drinking enough water. I have enough energy, right, to do the things I want to do in my life. But I'm also on the health journey too. That is self care, right? Because whether it's peace of mind and a bubble bath, whatever you're doing to feed your soul, you're going to have the energy, you're going to have the joy, you're going to slough off the stress by taking care of yourself, both mentally and physically. You can't really do one without the other. I'll just say that I'm a big advocate for that. So
Right.
if you're taking care of yourself, which is a lot more than just a mani-pedi, we're talking about true inner self-care, you're going to have less stress. Your endorphins are going to be higher. You're going to have a higher sex drive. You're going to feel more desirable even if you don't have the body you want. Like, it plays into it so huge. Like, it's
Mm,
like women come to me and they're like, and I'm like, how much water are you drinking? How much exercise are you getting? They're like, I didn't think I signed up for a health coach. I go, no, but this all impacts how you feel, how you
right.
show up in your marriage, how you show up in your relationship every day. So you got to do these things if you want to change your mind, right?
Yeah. It all ties in together. Well, Katie, this has been so awesome. I want to ask you, like, is there a message you want to leave our audience with about the importance of relationships we have with ourselves, or the impact our relationships, have on others?
Gosh, just one? Yeah. My my biggest message is, I know it sounds corny because everyone's like, oh, you gotta love yourself, you the compassion you give yourself will be reflected in the compassion you give to the people you care the most. And if
Mm,
you're struggling with any kind of compassion, showing compassion to your spouse, your business partner, your kids, whatever the case is, 9 times out of 10, that comes back to the fact that you're too busy with your inner critic. You're spending too much time criticizing yourself and not giving yourself enough compassion. Because when we let ourselves off the hook, when we speak to ourselves in our friend voice, when we learn that and embrace that, we then can actually offer it to others. So yeah, my biggest message is, your relationship to yourself is literally the biggest and most important part of you experiencing the outward connection and relationships you truly desire to have. And that's why vulnerability is your superpower. Because if you can get to that space within yourself, not if he can do something or they can do something, if you can live in that space within yourself, then you can be vulnerable, you can be authentic, you can have those true, deep, meaningful connections with those that you really desire to have. But it starts with you.
mm, it starts with you. Well, there you have it, ladies. It's time to schedule that one-on-one meeting with your significant other, and we're going to talk, and you're going to talk about communication and everything that you learned today. This episode was so great, and I know our audience is going to get incredible value from this. Katie May, where can people find you?
Yes. So I'm intimacy underscore revolution on Instagram. And yes, Katie May, that's Katiemee. And the Katie May Show is my podcast. So if you want more content and more specific stuff surrounding communication, boundaries, and relationships, feel free to follow me there. I'm on Facebook as Katie May as well. I also have Intimacy Revolution as a free Facebook group. So you can find me any one of those places.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katie. This was great.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you to our audience for joining us for another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. As always, make sure you check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, you guys, thanks so much.